The Sasuke Retrieval arc is the culmination of Sasuke's character in part 1 as he finally comes to a conclusion on his feelings towards his pursuit of revenge. From a thirst for revenge to setting it aside for his new family and then being swung right back into that darkness. This full circle storytelling regarding Sasuke's character had been prevalent but in the background. Coming off the backs of the iconic showdowns and the Chunin exams and the heartbreaking moments of Konoha Crush, he took a back seat, so touching upon his character in this way feels a lot more fitting than not. A refocus of sorts on this story's more main cast in the process. While there are a lot of moving parts during the start of this story arc, I don't think that there's anything particularly out of place. Each character that begins some sort of development is like the start of a new chapter, and is in equal part the end. All these new beginnings for these few characters were meant to prepare for the future of the story and for what the end of the arc has to say. It stands to be said that a special handful will never get moments as important as the ones they receive here for the rest of the story, with the exception of a sacrifice later on. Be that as it may, the build up for the climax of Naruto's first part has been over 100 chapters in the making, so let's get into one of Shonen's best story arcs, the Sasuke Retrieval arc. Like I mentioned prior, this arc sets out to be the beginning and end for a lot of characters, which means less significance for a lot of Naruto's most influential characters that made part 1 of this story so engaging. Rock Lee gets his last stand, Neji defies his destiny against Kidomaru, and Gaara stands to redeem himself. This selection of characters who were introduced in the 2 previous arcs was a decision that makes sense because of how strong each one was in their individual showings. 2 in particular demonstrate a strong sense of maturity that wasn't present before in the mindsets they have from witnessing Naruto on his journey. Naruto's positive influence on what many would consider characters too far gone in mindset and worldview is something that is tested by the person it matters to most by the end of this arc. For now though, the characters to take on this conflict alongside him need to be looked at in depth. Choji, Neji, Shikamaru, and Kiba on paper is a weird lineup for this mission, a visual demonstration of Konoha's scattered state, so a rogue Genin seems like the last thing that this village should be worrying about. Although it does have another important piece to consider. That being relegating this mission strictly to Sasuke's peers, making all this feel so much more personal. Not to mention how this retrieval squad would go up against opponents who share similarities to them. This similarity motif would permeate throughout every battle in this arc, which is most pronounced in the first fight, Choji versus Jirobo. Standing as Choji's first big battle in this series, it establishes his grit and determination as a ninja. Having been taken down in embarrassing fashion at the hands of Dosu, Choji's showings against Jirobo were definitely surprising to say the least. His expansion jutsu and aptly named butterfly form are standout moments not just for him in this arc, but in the story itself. Given his pitiful childhood and gag-centric character, no one would expect him to grow into a shinobi who would risk his life for just a single win. He's facing someone that is considered the slowest of his group, but not the strongest despite what might be suggested by Jirobo's size. Sakon and Yukon are stated to be the strongest of the Sound Four, and Naruto, thanks to his 9 Tails form, is stronger than Choji in striking power, one would assume. Jirobo is meant to be an inverted mirror as he's been a known threat since Konoha Crush, whereas Choji is heavily underestimated by allies and audience alike. He's also one of 2 Genin that supposedly perishes after making a very dangerous move in his fight, so there is that. In my opinion, this is definitely one of the more entertaining fights of this arc because of its insane scope in terms of destructive capacity. But the next battle could not be more different than this one, as it involves a fly caught in a spider's web. After the Chunin exams and Naruto's help changing his mentality, Neji had grown not only as a person, but as a combatant. This fight relies more on tactics than seeing what the other can do. An approach like this exposes the weakness of the Hyuga clan's most prized jutsu. Neji's way of circumventing that weakness and using it to his advantage so he can defeat his natural counter is what makes this fight so amazing. This not only sells the fact that he carries his clan's genius with him, but emphasizes the influence Naruto had on him. He's defied his fate to prove himself worthy to live proudly even in self-sacrifice. Unlike this next battle, Kiba is no genius and has quite a bit of an uphill battle to face head on.
Second close. Divide.
Like Choji, Kiba has been overlooked quite a bit in this story, especially after such an embarrassing loss to Naruto. Coming up against another tag team was a predictable matchup, but serves to demonstrate differing levels of jutsu and how horrifying or powerful their jutsu can be. Sakon and Yukon use their extra limbs to complement each other, while Kiba and Akamaru operate separately, relying on combo attacks at critical moments. However, the individual encounters lead to some pretty tense moments as the fight develops into a cat and mouse game. There's also a moment where Sakon and Yukon slip on some drool rule, which creates an opening for an attack to hit its mark. This is a clever callback to another time when a normal bodily function is crucial to a fight Kiba takes part in. Unfortunately for Kiba, this could not have won him the battle. A moment that's as perfect as it is cruel because his opponent was far too strong for a loss to be founded on such a thing. There was no escaping a definite skill and power gap, which is what Shikamaru too would face. In this do or die arc, we get to bear witness to who Shikamaru is when his back is up against the wall and he has to act. His bout against Temari during the Chunin exams was a very brief window into his bag of tricks and tactics, but this time we understand that bag in full. The more bait and punish approach Shikamaru has is more reminiscent of a ninja, one might say, when thinking of these other fights. Choji's battle is one focused on him proving himself as a shinobi, Kiba's fight is focused on his resilience and ability to compete with a character far stronger than him, and Neji's fight is him taking his newfound freedom of character to reinvent himself. Shikamaru's fight is about finding the most optimal way to win as quickly as possible. He's no physical beast like Choji, a dynamic duo like Kiba and Akamaru, a taijutsu master like Neji, or a boy with explosive power all around like Naruto. He's a ninja whose mind is his greatest asset that can bridge any gap in power if the proper tools are available to him. He's no miracle worker by any stretch of the imagination, as he's meant to be the most grounded combatant of this entire arc, a strategist who can fight when called upon. That is his role and his piece on this team. Despite losing his battle, he's made his mark by surviving as long as he did until help could arrive. Gaara, Kankuro, and Temari appear to save 3 different ninja who they are linked to in one way or another. Kankuro saves Kiba, Shino's teammate, Temari saves Shikamaru, the shinobi she technically lost to, and Gaara saves Rock Lee, the ninja who struck fear into his heart for the first time in a while. Gaara's save is especially important because this was his step forward thanks to Naruto's influence. Standing opposed to another whose allies feared him because of his power, this fight for him is about redemption and an apology to the shinobi he wounded all those chapters ago. While taking a path devoid of darkness was well within Gaara's future, Sasuke's road ahead would be completely shrouded in it.
Final close. Divide.
Part 1 of Naruto is special, and I don't think that comes as much of a surprise. It's what started everything, and for what began as an annoying kid seeking attention, it turned into so much more as time went on. At the core of that change is Naruto's gradual maturity. From Zabuza to Neji to Gaara to Tsunade to Sakura and now to Sasuke. Words have always been Naruto's forte, a boy who's known loneliness and pain cannot stand to keep what he feels bottled up inside when it counts most. Naruto is an emotional character. After all, he's still a kid, and so is Sasuke. Unlike everyone before, there were no promises to be made, no one to relate to, no fate to defy, or criticisms to be considered. Sasuke had been driven to the edge and cannot waste any more time in Konoha. There's nothing left but a brutal battle between brothers. The dynamic shared between Naruto and Sasuke was built up like 2 characters cut from the same cloth who understood one another quite well. However, their rivalry would create a divide because of how close they were. Sasuke hasn't trusted someone so much since Itachi, and that same relationship resulted in nothing but heartache. If Sasuke tried to retain his connection with Naruto or anyone in Konoha, he would limit himself from being able to commit to his mission of taking down his brother. Cutting down the one person who cared for him most is a demonstration of how far he's fallen, and a bit of self-loathing, I think. He's given himself to Orochimaru so long as he can take revenge on Itachi. It's clear he no longer cares about living once he reaches his goal's natural end. I don't think it's too far of a stretch to believe Sasuke no longer believed he deserved love or kinship to some extent. The lengths to which he will go to cut off that love and compassion is very limited because he ends up sparing Naruto's life, and the long chase for him to return to the Hidden Leaf Village began. This fight was more about Sasuke than Naruto at its end, which plays into this arc's conclusion and makes a story beat like this so hard to come by nowadays. In a day and age where it's growing more and more uncommon for bad endings to be canonical ones, treating them like what-if scenarios. The heroes don't lose, and modern day stories refuse to allow that to happen. It shouldn't happen, especially to the main character. As stated before, this is the last hurrah for so many characters. Kiba, Choji, Lee, and Neji didn't have a big role in the series, so giving them one before the future of this story in Shippuden was a natural decision. Overall, the final major story arc of Naruto Part 1 is a conclusion where several promising genin and one chunin are forced to take on a mission clearly made for jonin level ninja. It's an arc about defying the odds, proving your worth, fighting to your last, and what happens when your words fail but you cannot back yourself up. Most of all, it's about a fallout between 2 friends who lost sight of who each other were. Thank you all so much for watching. Please stay safe out there and have yourselves a damn good one. I'll see you all next time.